remember once when I was in school, there was a dispute over who could use the gym and when they could use the gym. Me and my buddies, we really liked using the gym. And there was a ball cart, and the ball cart, I mean, it wasn't lockable. It just had the basketballs and volleyballs and stuff in there. And it wasn't really clear. There's disagreement among the faculty about whether the gym could be used in off hours. And we're kids. We just want to play ball. We weren't doing anything bad. I mean, really, honestly, I did bad things, but I wasn't doing anything bad when we were playing basketball. It was very harmless. So we go in there all the time after hours. If the gym was ever unlocked, we'd just go to the ball cart and we'd play ball. There was one guy who was like, the basketball has to stop. And he couldn't really get a consensus for it. So he just solved it by taking matters into his own hands. He went and bought a locking mechanism and he put it on the ball cart. We went in there one day. We went to get the basketballs out and it was locked. I'm like, oh, well, there's not much we can really do about that. I guess we're kind of done here. Then the next day or maybe the next week or whatever at school, I asked the guy, did you lock the ball cart? And very defiantly, he was like, as a matter of fact, I did. I'm like, huh. Well, I guess that kind of settles it. And that was the end of the can you play basketball after hours controversy of whatever year that was. Dude just finally brute force took matters into his own hands and resolved the thing. Likewise, Nehemiah is trying to collect all of the runaway rapid fire tennis balls of chaos that have been introduced while he's gone. Boom, boom, boom. And he succeeded at getting one of them cleaned up, the whole fiasco with Tobiah and the storeroom and keeping all of the people who worked to make the life of the temple and everything surrounding it function. He got all of that cleaned up, but now there's a Sabbath controversy and he's trying to get that cleaned up as well. Well, how do you fix it? How do you make it so that a bunch of people who want that extra workday, that extra 16.7% income that you can get in a given week, but that you can't get if you're going to honor the Sabbath, how do you get it straightened out? Well, some people would take a very long time to do a lot of paperwork and file all of the requisite complaints with the proper people and have some community forums, Parks and Rec style, where you listen to all of the opinions. And then finally, eventually, you're able to maybe do something. But there's another kind of person who deals with these sorts of problems, much in the same way that the guy who dealt with the basketball after hours problem dealt with it. And that is to just go do something and stop the practice you don't like by being the only one who's willing to take action. So Nehemiah comes back from cupbearing for the king. He returns to Jerusalem to discover that all the tenets of the covenant that they had just signed, all the nobles and everybody, they're all being violated. Nobody's doing any of that stuff. They're blowing off the Sabbath stuff. And he rebukes them, saying, what is this wicked thing you're doing, desecrating the Sabbath? This is Nehemiah 13:17, by the way. Didn't your forefathers do the same thing so that our God brought all this calamity upon us and upon this city? He's saying, like, the whole problem we were into, the whole reason we had to rebuild the temple, the whole reason we had to build these walls, the whole reason we had to stave off total annihilation at the hands of Haman a generation ago is because of this kind of stupid crap. Like, this is what your forefathers did. This is what we all prayed an apology to God for, to say we're guilty of this and our forefathers are guilty of this. Come on. Now are you stirring up more wrath against Israel by desecrating the Sabbath? Well, what are you going to do, Nehemiah? Verse 19. When evening shadows fell on the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I, Nehemiah, ordered the doors to be shut and not opened until the Sabbath was over. I stationed some of my own men at the gates so that no load could be brought in on the Sabbath day. He put Persians there, bro. He took soldiers who were a part of his escort and his retinue. This is his personal guard. Remember, he's a very high-ranking official. Were these maybe immortals? I mean, that was the imperial guard of the day. Did he have access to the elite troops of the day? The ones who ultimately were able to overcome brave King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans at the hot gates, the Thermopylae, a few decades earlier? Is it those soldiers who Nehemiah has access to here? Well, I think it might be. I think it's his own men. I think these are outsiders to the whole thing. They're not all mixed up in the entangling alliances and intrigues of Tobiah and all of that mess. I think when he says my own men, he means people he pays or Artaxerxes pays who have no interest in the politics of Jerusalem. Their only obligation, their only life vow is to obey the commands of the king's right-hand man, Nehemiah. So he takes his own guys, his own bodyguard maybe even, and puts them at the gate and is like, you want to attack the king's men? Would anybody care to attack the king's men? I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, Herodotus gives us some details about people who do anything that even flirts with raising a hand against an Achaemenid king. I think everybody knew what the deal was. This is quite the power play. This is more bold than just putting a lock on the ball cart cage. I stationed some of my own men at the gate so that no load could be brought in on the Sabbath. Once or twice, the merchants and sellers of all kinds of goods spent the night outside Jerusalem. But I warned them and said, why do you spend the night by the wall? If you do this again, I will lay hands on you. From that time on, they no longer came on the Sabbath. I love all the little Nehemiahisms, right? I'm doing a great work. I won't come down. That's not true. You made it up out of your own head. Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who's great and awesome, and fight for your brothers and your sons and your daughters and your wives and your homes. He just always knows what to say. He says such cool things. He says it so concisely, and he does it again here. Hey, you outsiders, I know you don't understand our Sabbath thing, and you've apparently been given the impression that we'll do business with you like this. We won't. Things have changed. There's a new sheriff in town. Don't even bother camping by the walls. If you camp by the walls again after this conversation, I will lay hands on you. And that was the end of that. Then I commanded the Levites to purify themselves and go guard the gates in order to keep the Sabbath day holy. That's verse 22 of Nehemiah 13. Remember me for this also, O my God, and show mercy to me according to your great love. I've teased that a few times. Remember in verse 14, after he cleaned up the Tobiah mess, Nehemiah said, remember me for this, O my God, and do not blot out what I have so faithfully done for the house of my God and its services. And now here's another one like that, and then we're going to get another line like that here in a minute. Now I'm just putting a pin in that. We're going to work through all of that theme when we get to the end of everything. But there it is, Nehemiah, man of action. Other people file paperwork and file complaints and gossip and impotently poke around at the problem. Nehemiah is so crystal clear on what the issue is and what needs to be done that he is willing to make the problem his problem, roll up his sleeves, get dirty, deal with it himself, even if it involves maybe the tiny threat of physical violence. I'm not even sure is that tiny of a threat. This guy is a problem solver, and he is throwing every ounce of his reputation and his well-being at getting this stuff straightened out now for a second time. That's 2 tennis balls, boom, boom, that he's got back in the basket, but boom, there's another one coming next time around. Should be fun. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.